to talk to you today about firearms. Everyone, regardless of whether or not you've ever used a firearm, held a firearm, or even been in the same room as a firearm, knows what a gun is. It conjures this image of the soldier and his favorite tool, taking out the opposing side, but has become a hot topic of debate as of late. The latest controversial gun law passed has since been revoked due to the ATF's inability to pass legislative action, something to remain pertinent throughout my speech. Guns are tools, nothing more or less, and are used in accordance with accomplishing a task, be that hunting, target practice, or generally dissuading someone from doing something. Guns are not only becoming more necessary every day thanks to increases in violent crimes, but the people who use them are being targeted by regulation and governmental agencies. And I've been around firearms my entire life. I've taken an interest in them since I was at a young age. And I've studied up on how most firearm systems functions and the platforms into which they are inserted, but I still only know a little about a lot. Not to get too libertarian for you, but the Second Amendment guarantees us the right to bear arms, and that right of which cannot be infringed. And the ATF is in and of itself infringement by being the regulatory committee tasked with enforcing a restriction on Americans having the right to own and bear only certain arms of a certain class of citizens willing to comply with laws, thereby doing essentially nothing to the gun violence statistics. Now, having witnessed the events over the last 2 decades, I would say now is a better time than ever to learn how to protect yourself. Criminals are getting a larger and larger stockpile of available and illegal guns to choose from, only heightened by an ever-increasing amount of people addicted to hard substances in the Appalachian Mountains. And the riots of the last 3 years have shown that nobody is safe when mass destruction is concerned. It all comes down to how you can protect yourself one-on-one. Guns are a diverse and interesting tool that has been vilified in this country simply for being functional in the wrong hands, and not the hands that wielded them. Now, the reason they've been vilified are things such as the fact that being a tool meant to be used in a specific fashion, operating outside of it is something you take unto your own risk, and people don't seem to grasp that concept. You can't blame craftsmen because you were riding their mower and crashed into a ditch. That's on you. And a gun without a person to operate it will not fire. It's only by actively pulling the trigger that the person will cause the gun to go off. Anything else that's time delayed is a bomb. Hypothetically, if I wanted to murder someone and had no access to firearms, I can still accomplish my goal. We've been killing each other for thousands of years without guns, and I don't think that we just turned stab-proof in the last 1,000. The criminals of today have stepped it up, and so we must in turn. Increased availability of body armor only shows just how serious criminals and their firearm selections are becoming, as gun laws prevent individuals that follow it from, for example, having a gun that can fire more than 10 rounds in a row in some states. They find themselves severely outclassed by crackhead Johnny and his 30-round AK he got illegally. Increasing reports of violent crime are sweeping across the nation, and as such, we must act accordingly. A firearm guarantees the best success rate out of any self-defense tool, because anything else requires that you get really close to them and then give away any sort of opportunity that you've afforded for yourself to cause any damage. Not to mention, people that get shot tend to either want to get away from the person shooting them or are dead. So, now, many refuse to carry a gun based on the idea that it's too dangerous. With proper training and knowledge, you'll protect yourself better with a gun than that $5 bottle of pepper spray you've got in your purse from Walgreens. And I'm sure if the wind changed, you'd be a lot more thankful for having a firearm instead. Guns don't work like how they think they do, though. Probably. The Kyle Rittenhouse trial showed us just how incompetent most people can be when it comes to firearms. Bullets don't typically explode inside a body, and if they do, you've probably acquired them illegally, making you the exact person you're trying to defend yourself against. And most guns in video games are either the game's version of a popular firearm, or just a high-definition digital remake. It doesn't train someone on every aspect of a firearm simply because you can shoot it. Well, and I say that loosely, shoot it. These games aren't causing kids to become unhinged gun nuts simply because they got introduced to them. Most accidental shootings occur because people have this fascination with the idea of having their finger on the trigger at all times, and pulling the trigger and wondering why, oh, well, I've just loaded up a magazine full of ammunition into this gun, racked a bullet into the chamber, and pulled the trigger. Why did it go off? Because you not realizing that the trigger operates the firearm is called negligent discharge. That's on you. Because if pressing down the gas in a car makes it go, then why wouldn't pulling on the trigger make the gun go? Now, the types of gun function and their purposes evolved from the idea of needing something more cutting edge against a better equipped military force than your own. Shotguns are great tools for small areas and hitting at very small targets. They don't fire a bullet, a traditional bullet anyways. Instead, utilize a packet of small BBs called shot. The size of the individual BBs can determine the range, the effectiveness, and the spread of the shot, the diameter. And shotguns are great tools for home defense, thanks to this concept of having a lot of pieces of metal flying very fast instead of just one. And because it has a lot of pieces of metal flying very fast instead of just one, it makes it a lot easier in a panicky, I'm waking up in the middle of the night situation where you have to go find your gun sort of deal. But it's limited in its aspect that because it's shooting multiple rounds, we'll call it that, all at once, it's not accurate at all, really. And if you were using a cylinder bore, which is the completely smooth cylinder, well, completely smooth barrel, not having a choke, meaning it's not constricted in any way, from using birdshot, the smallest shot, number 8 shot, it would only be effective at about 25 yards max. Anything past that, and you're just going to really hurt somebody. Now, rifles have a diverse variety of applications. Rifles have a huge scope of different ammo sizes that you can put in them, and it all depends on what you're trying to do, essentially. For example, a .308, which is great for taking on big game like deer, elk, bear, would blow a squirrel up, but something like .22 would do just fine. Rifles also use a balancing system of speed, accuracy, and power to determine how best to hit their target. A larger bullet flies slower but hits harder since it has more mass, but a faster spinning bullet will penetrate more. And a rifle is a great tool for hunting as it allows you to easily cover the great expanses that you can encounter whenever you're standing in one place and your quarry is quite far away. Now, handguns essentially serve one purpose. A handgun was built to be just that, a gun you can hold in the palm of your hand. And as such, it's often smaller than its counterparts, the shotguns and rifles, and they're separated by being classed as long guns versus handguns. And just because a rifle or shotgun is a long gun doesn't mean that a handgun can't fire shotgun or rifle bullets. This has led to a lot of diversification amongst the handgun crowd. And this is where they get a lot of scrutiny too, because handguns are designed to be fundamentally compact. Because they're designed to be fundamentally compact, this allows them to fit them in smaller places like a pocket or under your shirt or in your boot or somewhere small and discreet. Having the ability to fire shotgun shells out of something that you just pull out of your pocket is what leads to a lot of handgun fear, because you never know when someone might have one. Now, guns, as viewed by the politicians, face horrible and idiotic practices that limit the ability for an average citizen to feel adequately protected. In the state of California, for example, all detachable magazines, meaning that for me to hold ammunition inside this gun, it has to have a magazine that holds the bullets and goes into it. All magazines in the state of California are limited to 10 rounds, which, again, brings up the issue of being outclassed by crackhead Johnny. He has 30 rounds in his illegally bought AK that he can fire as quick as he can pull the trigger, and you've got 10. Not to mention that all the pistol grips that come on your gun, meaning a grip that protrudes in a manner in which it can be grabbed alone, like a pistol, have to be called featureless and designed as such, meaning that no shaving can occur, no shaping can occur. It has to be just as it is, with the molding, with the extra plastic, everything hanging off of it, just like it came out of the factory, nothing done to it. Essentially making your gun useless because you can't grab it. California also being so close to the Mexican border leads to a lot of gun and firearm trafficking through there, which, again, is how crackhead Johnny got his rifle. And you having a gun that you can't use, is limited to 10 rounds, and is just overall useless piece of metal, you would be better off with a hammer, leaves you to wonder, what exactly am I protecting myself with against what they've got? Now, the governor of New Mexico recently suspended gun use and open carry, something that is completely unconstitutional. We as a country decided over 150 years ago that federal powers trump state powers. She doesn't have the right to permanently disband gun use and ownership. And the police force that works for her has even announced they refuse to arrest anyone on their right to carry and operate a firearm. She has since double backed, only issuing a temporary ban on them. It's supposed to last a few weeks, and has left many skeptical and somewhat frightened as to when it's going to actually end, because as of right now, it is still continuing, past 2-ish months. Now, under Biden's administration, he tackled the issue of what's called ghost guns, and put a hamper on those that legitimately work on their firearms. He required that all gun parts be shipped throughout the country with a serial number instead of just as the part themselves, so that way it can be traced back via ownership. This wasn't a problem for criminals, because most of their guns are stolen, so who cares anyway? But all the people that buy parts kits and work on their firearms now face a longer wait list because they can't buy everything in bulk because they have to go back and mark all their products again. And this has started a downward spiral in which the ATF began to expand upon their laws so much, the whole thing was diluted down to most guns are probably illegal now. An example being that if I had a barrel on this AR-15 less than 16 inches with this stock on it, it is now illegal for me to own because this is called a short-barreled rifle. But if I had that same less than 16-inch barrel and no stock, now it's legal. But if I have that same less than 16-inch barrel, no stock, and instead of having an angled foregrip on it, I had a vertical one, which I held it like this, it's illegal again, because then it can be shot like a rifle. So, as you can see, guns get a bad rap simply for what they are, functional. People don't research into them enough to know what's a dangerous gun, or something that's just working like it's supposed to. Guns aren't these demonic enablers that make people feel they have to kill to justify owning one. The weapon choices and crimes are only getting more elaborate and better functioning by the day, and the people in charge of how you acquire, maintain, and use guns don't know a thing about them since they continue to tell us we're using them wrong. I don't expect this issue to be solved anytime soon, as it's been a subject of debate since the 90s, but there's no easy answer when it comes to gun violence, as all laws will undoubtedly target those who follow them, making them pointless against the real threats, the criminals. And the only good solution we have is to create a task force whose specific job is to bust these groups up, which then becomes a waiting game, and which we've already done. So the issue isn't trying to regulate the people that are following the laws, the issue then becomes, why haven't our task force produced more results? That's the real question.